ICSOM's series of monthly videos to feature our musicians of color. I'm Paul Austin, ICSOM president and the horn player in the Grand Rapids Symphony. Today, I am very happy to be speaking with violinist Mary Corbett. Mary appeared on the cover of the December 2022 issue of the International Musician, which is the publication of the American Federation of Musicians, and really had a wonderful interview, which led me to invite her to appear on ICSOM's video series. Mary grew up in Buffalo, New York, attended Eastman School of Music, and has been a member of the Florida Orchestra since 1989. She's been a member also of the orchestra and the negotiation committee. So welcome, Mary.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you for having me.
Good. Oh, it's great to see you and to meet you this way. Good. I've got this ready. If you're ready, we'll fire away.
Absolutely. Let's launch in. Sure.
Okay, Mary. So do you recall the first time that you heard an orchestra? Could you tell us about it?
Yes, absolutely. First orchestral experience was about 6 months old, so I don't quite recall the first time I was at a concert. My parents were both very musical. Dad sang in a barbershop quartet called the Carolinians and recorded for CBS, as well as being a college professor in social science. And Mom was a music and language major at Michigan. So I grew up with music, surrounded by music. I remember the first orchestral experience would have been actually listening to Nat King Cole and his gorgeous orchestrations of his album, Nature Boy. So that would be, I mean, the gorgeous singing strings, beautiful lilting woodwinds. I mean, it just, that was my first memory of like, what on earth is that? I mean, it was absolutely just mesmerizing, you know. So that was my first experience. We lived close by to New York City. We lived in New Haven, Connecticut. I had a relative there, and we went there about once a month and saw orchestra concerts. So my first orchestral concert would have been like 3, 4. I remember it very clearly as being an experience of just being surrounded by sound, which was very different than the sound coming out of the Magnavox. Of course, being in that interactive experience, I was sold, absolutely sold.
So I'm glad to hear you were sold, but what sold you on the violin? What led you to that instrument?
Well, it was interesting. Since I was raised in Buffalo, in 1971, Michael Tilson Thomas was the music director of the Buffalo Philharmonic, and he did youth concerts. And he knew how to curate a youth concert. Obviously, he had a wonderful mentor, Leonard Bernstein, in his youth concerts. So I went to a youth concert, was blown away. It's an acoustically perfect hall. It's amazing. And so just about that time, I can't remember if it was 2, 3 weeks later, there was a gentleman, Clayton Wall, who's a violinist, and his daughter, Carolyn Wall, who happens to play the French horn in the Florida Orchestra. Interesting coincidence there, right? So he was giving music aptitude tests. And apparently I was the only one that ever scored a perfect score. To me, it seemed easy. It's like, is this below or above middle C? It seemed very easy. But anyway, he was a gorgeous violinist. And I'm just like, I went home that day and said, Mom, can I play the violin? You know, and I'd already started on piano. And I think she was like, are you sure? Is this another, one of your things that you want to do? But I absolutely took to it quickly and easily and loved it. Absolutely loved it.
So Mary, I remember that test when I was in elementary school.
Do you remember that?
It was not a perfect score, so right now, just
oh, that's hilarious.
very lower. It was a lot. I remember that very, very well. Nice, and it's really that Carolyn Wall is now one of your colleagues in the
Absolutely. Very small world. It's not a small world, it's a large room. It's the truth of the music world.
So Mary, was there an aha moment when you knew that you wanted to become a professional orchestral musician?
Well, I always loved playing in orchestra. Clayton Wall had a Baroque orchestra. We traveled to Kennedy Center and St. Albans and Williamsburg, and I always loved playing in orchestra. I also loved playing solos as well. Going to Meadowmount, I was trying to kind of gear into playing solos and stuff, but I actually started playing the violin a little late. I started when I was 8 years old, which is a little late for that kind of career, but I'd have to say, Paul, honestly, I just kind of fell into it. I loved doing it, and I ended up being fortunate enough to be able to do it. I was sort of like, of course it was my dream. It was what I wanted. I aspired to it, but I had no way of knowing if it was really going to work. I mean, when I hit my first audition, I'll never forget it. I was not ready for what it was. I mean, what it took to prepare. I mean, it was just, you had to be absolutely perfect. And it was an experience. I'll never forget that first audition I took, but I knew that I wanted to play in orchestra, and I was lucky, to be able to do it for a living. It's been quite a ride.
That's great. And of course, speaking of playing orchestra for a living, you've been in the Florida Orchestra now since 1989. Is there a special?
Yes, indeed. And I was planning on just passing through, Paul. Look at that. It's like, oh my, look at that. But it's amazing how the time has just rolled forward so quickly. It's amazing. And it's been quite a career. It's really amazing how, I mean, I came actually to Florida just for the job. I mean, I never imagined living in Florida. That was kind of a surprise, but there was an opening, and I auditioned and was delighted to receive the position.
And so now hundreds of concerts there. There must be one that really sticks out as one you'll never forget.
Well, that would be the Whitney Houston concert. Has to stick out. I mean, that anthem, that's going to be the gold standard forever. I don't think anybody can ever top that experience. It was a remarkable performance. I think really the one when I was thinking about if there was such a thing, I think it would be actually the concert directly before the shutdown for COVID. So that was March 2020. Rachmaninoff Concerto, Sibelius 7. It's hard to know how much you appreciate something when you have it, but when it's taken from you so abruptly and without any kind of idea when or if it will come back, it was pretty profound. So we were milking every single note.
That is one to remember, definitely. So listen, if today's Mary Corbett could give advice to herself, younger self, what would that be?
That's good. Gosh, hindsight is so 2020, isn't it? I think the one thing the experience that I had with the Charles Weston Fellowship of being able to have that internship with the New York Philharmonic for 2 seasons, and now having had my life experience in Florida, I realized that I was always aspiring to, like, I need to be in a top 5 orchestra. I mean, there was this kind of like idea that if I achieved a certain level, then I would receive, satisfaction and feel a sense of accomplishment that I wasn't able to achieve in perhaps a 2nd or 3rd tier orchestra. Having had the gig in New York and having had the gig in Florida, it's the same reward, the same payoff, the same excitement, the same thrill of making music and changing people's experience, bringing this gift of music to the audience. It's just they don't realize how important they are. It's like, you guys, we can't do this without you. So that advice of just Mary, just play the violin. It's fabulous. It's what a way to feed the cat. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's so nice. I'll just play the horn. I mean, it's definitely good. And our questions are finished, but if there's a final thought that you'd like to share with our viewers, you've got the floor.
Oh, that's wonderful. No, it's just a real treat and delight to be invited to do something like this. I can't share enough about how much I enjoy what I do. What a privilege it is. It's an honor to be, gifted this whatever this is. It seemed to come naturally and easily, but it's been really a delight to be able to do this for a living. Absolutely thrilling, just thrilling. I'd make the same choices again, Paul. I do it again the same way. It's great.
Mary, really. And with that, we wrap up our conversation with ICSOM musician Mary Corbett. Mary, thank you so much for sitting down today with ICSOM so we can get to know you a bit more.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Paul. Thank you so much.